secondly, of course, the demonstration. Please all come and encourage as many people as you can to come. To help you do that, you may have noticed a few flyers lying around. Please take as many of them as you can carry, as many posters as you can carry, and distribute them as far and wide as you can to make this demonstration as big as it possibly can. There's a few lists going around the hall, so please add your name and email address and the region that you live in to that, just so we can keep in touch with you. And of course, the money issue. The campaign is dependent on donations. So if you'd like to fill in a standing order form, they're also in the table.
Wondering that they cannot be so. The proof of the pudding will be in the eating. But I'm sure, George, you accept that when we have, and we hope it is tomorrow, the imposition by government with international agreement of per capita carbon rationing, then technology will either ride to the rescue or it will fail to. But we will have the cap in place. The most essential thing we must do is to preserve the planet for future life. It's far, far more important that we enable the sorts of energy profligate lifestyles that we've come to adopt over the last couple of 100 years to be maintained. That's a lesser consideration. With the cap in place, then we can have the entrepreneurs riding to the rescue if they're able to do so. The important thing to bear in mind is the sufficiency element. When one hears talk about such sustainable development, I'm always intrigued why the word sufficiently sustainable, why the word sufficiently is not put in front of sustainable development. What we need is a cap. It's got to be a sufficient cap on our emissions. Ideally, the 100% cap, so to speak, zero carbon emissions from all of us. Now, the great majority of this audience, I'm sure, well exceed even the early stages of the cap that has got to be introduced simply by their own lifestyle, even if they don't fly. And probably quite a proportion, I won't embarrass you by asking you to say whether you fly or not, but the implications of maintaining our energy profligacy and even slightly is that we are going on in contributing to the destruction of the planet because the greenhouse gases from our excess use of fossil fuels is accumulating in the atmosphere. In other words, we are making it ever more difficult for the next generation and the generation beyond to survive what our intransigence on this has led us to. So I am supporting entirely what all speakers have said, and including, of course, what George Monbiot has said. I would add urgently the rider, don't go to sleep in the knowledge that you've been encouraged to believe that solar panels across Sahara or much bigger arrays of offshore wind turbines are going to ride to the rescue, and that our future economy can be then based on, in effect, green electricity. The likelihood of that occurring within the time we've got available before the tipping point is reached is extremely unlikely, because it really needed to be achieved yesterday.
If I could start with the things that Mayor was saying, which, of course, I fundamentally agree with, that there's no big difference between us here. But I think that the key point is, you say, once we've imposed the necessary cap, the sufficient cap, once we've imposed the carbon ration, my belief, and it's simply a belief from observing political systems, I can't demonstrate it, but my belief is that you have to be able to show people how you're going to achieve this if you are going to achieve it. That we have to be able to demonstrate that this is technologically feasible. We have to be able to demonstrate that it's economically feasible. We have to be able to demonstrate that people aren't suddenly going to end up shivering in the dark around a candle. Because if they believe that that is the case, and that they are going to end up like that, there is simply no way we can impose that cap, and we can impose that carbon rationing scheme. And it's because I so desperately want to see them imposed that I'm coming up with these technological solutions in order to facilitate it politically. we've seen how hard it is even to get far lesser measures passed because of public resistance. Let's not make things any more difficult for ourselves than they need to be. Now, as for this, could it be done in time? Sure, it can be done in time. You look at the US response in 1941 to Pearl Harbor. They turned the whole economy round on a sixpence, on a dime, sorry. You had General Motors turning out fighter bombers within 90 days of having the instruction. They'd never been in an aeroplane in their corporate lives before. But they were able to do this because the imperative was felt to be there. And it's up to us, no one else is going to do it, to ensure that imperative is felt to be there. And the extraordinary thing is, we're actually used to extraordinary, remarkable technological transformation. I mean, look at this. 4 gigabytes of memory stored on this. 60 years ago, this would have taken up Buckingham Palace. So I don't mean to keep harping on about that.
You really want to be there.
The one thing they haven't managed to do is to make it stay in the keyring. But I mean, it's extraordinary what can happen when people want it to happen. And basically, this happened because the money wanted it to happen. Well, we have to make the people want it to happen. Now, on this. I mean, I don't have time, obviously, to address it all. Maybe I could just talk very briefly on the national grid. And I think you're right. There's no question. When I talk to the experts in this field, they say it's been made much harder by the privatisation and deregulation of the grid. And this fragment, it's just like with the railways. How can you run a national system which has to operate at the national level, and the one I'm talking about has to operate at the supranational level, but it's in the hands of a whole lot of private operators with completely different interests. And that's why the railways are bugging up, and that's why it's going to be so difficult under the current structure to deal with this. And I think there is a very, very strong argument for what you're saying, that we need to renationalise the grid and its relationships to energy suppliers.
Decentralised versus centralised energy. I mean, I think, well, I agree with George to a certain extent that we probably need both, and I think that, one of these things, I mean, concentrated solar power in the Sahara desert is, to a certain extent, quite appealing. It's a very small percentage of the land area of the Sahara desert that would have to be covered with these parabolic mirrors that would drive a steam generator to power the whole of Europe, and theoretically you could run a line under the lead and put it onto the European grid. It actually wouldn't cost that much, and I think that this...
I think it's important to remember that climate change isn't the only problem going on here, and it's brought ahead a lot of other problems with our lifestyles, that even if we could find some great supergrid to replace all the energy, it doesn't change everything else that our lifestyles are doing to the rest of the planet, and that we in the rich nations are doing to the majority of the world, or that we wipe our asses on ancient forests. That we need to... Our lives are literally being propped up by the ecosystems and peoples of the planet that we've been... And these tend to be the people that actually know how to live sustainably, and before we came along, were living exciting, high-quality lifestyles that we destroyed, so as rich nations can shop more and consume more. So I think it's important to keep a big picture than just trying to fix the one little, the techno fixes are there to fix a problem of, oh, there's too much carbon, how do we do that? And it's bigger, more systemic problems that we need to be looking at within our societies and our communities.
But I think what makes everybody hesitate is the feeling that there's so much we have to do, there's so much we have to make the governments do, and we're 600 people here tonight, which is fantastic and the biggest meeting we've ever had in the campaign against climate change, and we're going to have demonstrations in 50 countries in December, but still, the gap between that and the force we need to get together to force the governments to act, the gap is enormous. And there's only one way to cross that gap. And it's not the media, and it's not getting the perfect solution, and it's not an endless argument, although all of those are necessary. It's that the people who are here tonight Go out and leaflet and tell everybody you know and call up everybody you know and email everybody you know and get as many people on that demonstration on December the 8th so that those people, demonstrations on their own don't change the world. But each of us feels a little bit stronger because we were in a meeting of 600 people tonight. And each of us will feel a little bit stronger. And each of the people we get to that demonstration in December will feel a little bit stronger. And the people who are demonstrating in Lebanon and in Egypt and the United Arab Republic and Bolivia and Cameroon and all of those people will feel stronger because it is a global demonstration. So when you go away, don't simply take away an argument about this or an argument about that, as crucial as those are. Leave your telephone number at the end of this. Give us some money in standing orders. We need the money desperately in the campaign. But above all, come and find us and find what you can do to spread the word and get more people moving.